Hi all, welcome back to my channel. I'm Ollie from Simply Stitchy. I'm a full-time blogger and a YouTuber obsessed with sewing. This channel is where I share my passion for sewing through tutorials, how-to hints and sewing tips. I collect and have been known to sew from vintage patterns and new ones when I get a spare 5 minutes, and I have an ever-increasing collection of vintage sewing machines. My videos will cover the machines, the sewing and the patterns, and sometimes I'll throw in a little bit of history to boot. Today's video is about threading different sewing machines. Now, if you own a sewing machine, you'll probably have noticed that different brands have different ways to thread. So what we'll be looking at today is a couple of different sewing machines. Grandma at the back there, obviously, a Singer 15, Janome, and I've got a brother as well. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. We're going to be starting with Grandma today because she's the oldest, so why not? You're going to need a spool of thread. What you do is you pop the spool of thread on the spool holder. Now you'll find with most spools of thread there's a little notch on one of the sides, and what that little notch does is when the reel's new, it holds the thread so it doesn't unravel in the shops. It's there, I think. Yep. Now what you want to do on modern machines in particular is you want to make sure that that notch isn't going to catch on the thread as it's coming off the sewing machine. I'll show you more about what I mean when we get onto a modern machine. But if you keep that notch to the top on machines that have got upright spool holders, you've got more chance of keeping it well out of the way of the thread as it comes off the reel. So once you've got your reel on your spool holder, there's a little thread guide here at the front that you put the thread through like that. Then you come down to the tension discs and you thread it through the tension discs. There's a little gadget on Grandma and other machines of her age, which is this, and if you push it, it takes the tension off the rings, so it makes it just that little bit easier for you to get the thread between the discs. Now some old machines have got like a little squiggly bit of metal that sticks out of the tension discs. I'll show you what I mean by that when we get to the Singer 15. Grandma hasn't got one, so that's why I'm not threading it through, but obviously if your machine has got one, make sure you go through the little wiggly bit sticking out. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to find the end of the thread. There it is, and we're going to just thread it through the take-up lever like so. Now, as you'll have probably spotted in the previous video, there's a little thread guide here on the front faceplate. To get the thread through that, all you have to do is take it to the back and just click it. Did you hear that little click sound? I'll do it again. Hold the thread and then just pull it through. And now it's not going to do it because I'm filming it. I'll try it again. Hold it to the back, try and keep my hands out of the way while I'm doing it, and there, that little click. That shows that you're in that thread guide. Okay, and the next thing you want to do on Grandma is there's a little thread guide here on the needle bar. It wants to go behind that. And then the next thing that we need to do is thread the needle. If we focus on the needle for a moment, if I bring it into focus, you'll notice that it's got a rounded side and a flat side, which is that bit. Now the reason for that is so that you know which way round the needle goes in your machine. The flat side in most modern machines faces towards the back of the machine, and the rounded side faces the front, which is nice and logical, isn't it? Yeah. Unfortunately, not all machines work that way. Some machines, Grandma is one of them, has the needle or have the needle fitting into a different direction, and I'll show you on Grandma in a minute. What you really need to do when you're working out how to put your needle in your machine is dig that sewing machine manual out and take a look through it, because that book will tell you which way around to put your sewing machine needle. Another interesting fact about sewing machine needles is the thread I'll just grab it a minute, sorry I just dropped it. The thread, this bit, actually goes through the needle so that it goes through the side that's got the rounded part and comes out at the back where the flat part is. So you thread your needle towards the flat part. Okay, we're back with Grandma. The next thing that we need to do obviously is thread the needle. Now, as I said, Grandma's needle, the flat side of the needle is on this side, so it's facing towards the hand wheel. Okay, so basically to the right. With needles, the thread goes through the needle so that it goes through on the rounded side and comes out on the side that's got the flat part, which means that Grandma doesn't thread front to back. She threads left to right. So what we're going to do next is we're going to thread the needle. I tend to use this little gizmo with Grandma. This is just a needle threader. You can pick these up on Amazon. They have them in most places that sell fabric. They can be used with sewing machines, they can be used with hand sewing, but they are a little gem for getting thread through those tricky little eyes of needles. What you need to remember, if your sewing machine threads from left to right, the thread needs to come through the needle so that it comes out on the right. So your needle threader needs to go through so that the bit that you put the thread through is on the left hand side. You get it through the needle so that the metal bit, it's all metal, so that the wire bit sticks out towards the left. And then all you have to do is find out where the end of the thread's gone and you just push it through that wire bit. A handy tip for when you're threading needles is if you're having trouble getting it to go through the eye of the needle, just chop with a pair of snips the end off at an angle. Doesn't necessarily have to be a spot on angle, it's just a bit of a diagonal, and you'll find that will get rid of any loose frayed bits on the ends and it'll make it a bit easier to thread. Let's see if that's done the job. But doesn't help you see it. I should have got my glasses really, but hey, let's see if we can do it this time. Once you've got it through the thread, the needle threader, all you have to do is pull it in the direction that the needle has to be threaded. So in this case I'm going to be pulling it to the right, and that's the thread through the needle. Now the next thing that we need to do to thread this machine up to get it ready to sew is obviously to do the bobbin. Now the bobbins on these are a little bit fiddly. I'll show you how it goes in. You've got a long bobbin like that. It's got the thread coming off, whoops, on the top. So you put the other end into the shuttle so that the thread's up here, there it is. And then there's a little slot that goes down the side and your thread just follows that. Now this is the tricky bit with these particular kinds of bobbins. You get to the bottom and most instruction manuals will tell you to hold it like that and then just pull straight up. Now there isn't anything to put this thread in here. It's just a dead end. The thread's not going to go any further than that. What it's actually asking you to do is get the thread so that it goes under this bit. So basically all you have to do is just move it to the top and it will go underneath there. Let's see if I can show you a little bit. So basically what you do is slide it. Where's it gone? There it is. This is fiddly. Just slide it so that it appears in there. Doesn't have to come through that hole or anything, it just literally lies across the top there. Now that we've fiddled with the bobbin for a bit, what we're going to do is we're going to put it back in the machine and it literally just slots in, or at least it would do if that was in the right place. There, like that. Now, to bring the bobbin up, what you do is you hold the top thread just gently. You don't have to hold on to it tight. You just, all you're trying to do is to make sure that this doesn't disappear down there. So just lightly hold on to it. With your hand wheel, you turn and keep turning until the bobbin thread comes up with it, and then you just gently pull it all the way through, and it's as simple as that. So that's how you thread grandma. The next machine that we're going to look at is the Singer 15. You've previously met this one in a couple of videos I did on what goes into the Singer 15 and explaining the RAF decals that are on this one. I'll put a link to both of those videos in the description box below. This machine threads up slightly different to grandma, and the main reason for that is because the tension discs are actually just to the side of the face plate instead of being on the front of the machine, as they are with most sewing machines. So what we'll do, get the thread spool on the spool holder, that bit's the same. From the spool holder, making sure that we've got that little groove on the top of the reel well out of the way of the thread path, so it's at the top. We're going to go into the threading guide. Now you'll notice that this machine's got two threading guides on either side of the faceplate. This one's for the top thread, and this one over here is actually for the bobbin thread when you're winding bobbins. From this thread guide, what you do is you go around, oops, a daisy, around the tension discs like so. There's like a little metal bit here, looks like a little hook like that. You need to go around the back of that so that the thread comes off like that. Now this one has got a little squiggly bit, so you need to make sure that your thread goes in the squiggly bit like so, and then from there, this thread's getting a bit long. Where my snip's gone? Oh, I think I'll put them back in my box. Just a moment, I'll get my snips. Right, thread's a bit more manageable now. Okay, from there what you do is you put it through the take up lever, untangle it from around that bit a bit. It's got the same kind of thread guide as grandma had, and it will work the same way. You don't have to thread it through, you just slot it. The difference with this one and grandma is the gap that you slot it through is actually here instead of behind it. So whereas with grandma I was going to the back and pulling forwards, with this one you go to the front. Oop, and miss it completely because you can't see it, and go backwards like that. I'm going to have to go and get my glasses, I think. Okay, so that's that bit threaded. Now she's got the same guide on here, so you go behind that one. Now this machine is another one that the needle sits in with the flat side facing the back of the machine, so it's going towards the hand wheel. So because the flat side is on the right, that means that this machine threads the same way as grandma, from left to right. So knowing that, we grab our little gizmo again. Okay, so once you've got your needle threader through the needle, it's just a case of getting your thread through the needle threader. So put it through the wire, like so, and then because this machine threads from left to right, pull the needle threader to the right and it threads the needle for you. Okay, next thing to do is the bobbin. Now this is a class 15 bobbin with a bobbin case, just a normal standard one, needs a bit of a clean. What you do is you pop the bobbin in the bobbin case, and the thread comes off clockwise on this, and there's like a little groove that you just follow the thread into that little slot there, and when you've got it into that little slot, it should still go that way. There we go. Next thing that we're going to want to do is pop it into the machine. Now there's a handy little lever, I suppose you could call it, on the side of these bobbins that just makes it easier to grab on like that, because what we need to do now is get this into the bed of the machine, and I'm going to bring you in a little bit closer so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so the bobbin housing for this particular machine is right in there. So what we're going to need to do is put the bobbin back in because it just fell out. Using your little lever, hold on to your bobbin like that. This little sticky up bit, it's like a little finger, needs to go into a little groove that's right at the top of the bobbin housing. This is actually going to make more sense when we get to the brother because it's a bit easier to see it on that one. So all you do is you just pop it in with that little finger facing upwards and wait until it clicks into the little slot. There you go, that's in. Right, now the next bit is very similar to most machines, to be honest. Just move it back up so you can see. Oh, that's the cat falling off the cupboard behind me. Right, so hold your thread, your top thread, and what we're going to do now is pull the bobbin up. And to do that, you just push on the wheel, the hand wheel, and keep turning until that thread comes up, and then it gets stuck underneath the foot. So just use your scissors or anything else that's small enough to fit under there and just pull, and it'll come up. So that's that one threaded and ready to go. Although this one doesn't stitch because I haven't got around to cleaning it yet, so we'll just leave it as at that one and move on to the brother. Before we actually get started on the brother, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, now would be a great time to click the subscribe button below and ring that little bell so that YouTube will let you know when I'm uploading another video. You don't want to miss out on my other great content on how to use electric sewing machines, how to use patterns, but we'll get back into this one. With the brother, it's got a retractable spool stand which you just pull up like that on the top. Again, keeping the little groove on the top of your thread spool away from the thread path, we pop the cotton reel on top of the thread spool. A handy thing about most modern sewing machines is most of them have got handy little diagrams actually printed onto the machine to tell you whereabouts you need to send the thread to thread the machine. If you haven't got a sewing machine that's got those, obviously your manual will help you thread your sewing machine. It'll tell you which guides to use. Now what we're going to do, obviously we're threading the needle, so we're going to go through this gizmo. You go underneath it, I'll do that again, you go underneath it and through the gap so that it looks like the picture on the top of the machine, and then you come down through this groove here, and we've got a tension dial on the brother, so you go around the tension dial up to the top of the next groove. You've got your take up lever here, which like the needle's at the highest bit, it's not going to come up any higher, but what you do is you wrap it around the take up lever. Now that process that we've just gone through is the same kind of process that we went through on Grandma and the Singer 15. The only difference is it's hidden inside the machine, so you can't see the little wiggly bits and all of those. We come down from the take up lever, and down at the needle bar we've got the same kind of little slot or hook at the top of the needle bar that the thread has to go around the back of, and then the next thing to do is thread the needle. And for this I'm definitely going to need my glasses. Now this machine is a new machine. Its needle has the flat part facing towards the back, so this machine threads from front to back. So in order to use one of these gadgets, we're going to need to put it through from the back to the front, because otherwise the thread will be going the wrong way around. If when you're threading your needle you find that your foot's in the way, just put it down to get it out of the way for a minute. When you're actually threading the machine, your your foot needs to be up, because that takes the pressure off the tension discs. That works the same on the other two machines as well. So always make sure your presser foot's up when you're threading, but when you want to get the thread through the needle, temporarily put your foot back down. And then it's just a case of getting your little gadget through your little hole in your needle so that you can thread it. Okay, and as you can see, what I've done there is I've put the threader in from the back through to the front of the needle, and then it's just a case of getting this through the wire bit on the threader. Now when it's through, because this goes from front to back, pull the threader towards the back of the machine and that'll thread it for you. Okay, now the next thing we do is the bobbin. Now as you can see, it's a similar style of bobbin to the Singer 15. It's got the same kind of bobbin case, and there's the bobbin for this one. So what we've got here is a close-up of the bobbin housing, and you see just at the top of the screen there's that little groove. Well, that's where the little finger on the bobbin case fits. So what you do is, using the handy little lever on the side of the bobbin case, you just slot it in like that. And bringing the bobbin up is exactly the same as in the other sewing machines we've looked at. Remember, if you put your foot down to thread your needle, remember to take it back up to get the pressure off your tension discs. Hold your top thread, the one that's going through your needle, and on this one, oops, there's no button up down switch on this one, so it's a case of turning your hand wheel to bring the bobbin up. Always turn your hand wheel towards you with sewing machines, and it goes down and then bring it all the way up. And as you can see, it'll bring that bobbin thread back up with it, and then it's just a case of pulling it up. And again, if you find that it's got a little bit stuck, just bring it up the rest of the way out from under your foot by using your snips. And then that machine is threaded up and ready to go. The next machine that we're going to look at is Janome. Now the reason why I'm using so many machines for this video is so that you can see the different ways the different machines actually thread up. Now you'll notice that the first difference with Janome here is the way that his thread spool holder is going. His isn't upright as it is on the other three machines, it's horizontal. Now when it comes to a horizontal spool holder like that, you'll usually find that your sewing machine will come with one of these devices, and what this does, and it's incredibly important that you make sure that you put it on every time you're using the sewing machine, is it stops the thread bobbling about like that and coming off the spool holder. And you remember I keep mentioning this groove that's in the thread spool. It's particularly important with a horizontal spool holder that you make sure that the groove on the reel, which is there on this one, is pointing towards the back of the machine, because if you've got that this way round with the groove there, what you'll find will happen is that thread will catch on that notch and it'll stop your machine working properly. You'll get skip stitches, your thread will break, all those sorts of things. So make sure you find that groove and you make sure it's pointing towards the back of the machine when you put it on the spool, like so. And then always make sure you put this back on. The next step that you do with this particular machine, if you have a look at the lid, you'll see that it's got diagrams, and the bottom diagram, can you see that from there? I don't know if you need to come in a little bit, shows exactly step by step the thread path that you need to follow. It's also got a thread path that you need to follow if you're going to be winding on a bobbin, but I'll walk you through it anyway. Again, if you haven't got that, if that's come off for some reason, check your manual. A treasure trove of information in sewing machine manuals, and they're not that big. It's not like reading a manual from a computer or anything. It's not going to take you all day. Right, the first thing you need to do, there's a little thread guide here and a little bobbly bit. I don't know what that's called, but you need to go behind it. And then in a similar way to the other machines, you go down through this slot here, which you can't see a moment. Hang on a sec. That's better. Right, so you go down through this slot here, you go round the bottom, you come back up, you slot it into the back of your take-up lever, that's that little silver bit sticking up, and you come back down. Now that is pretty much exactly the same as we've done on all the other machines. They've all got that down, up, around the take-up lever type of motion, and you'll find that that is pretty much the standard across sewing machines in general. Down here we've got the same little thread guide that's on the top of the needle bar that this needs to go behind. So we've got it round the back of the thread guide at the top, and the next thing to do is to thread the needle. Now I don't need my little gizmo for this one, because the handy thing about Janome is he's got an automatic needle threader. The problem with automatic needle threaders, apart from the fact that A, they're not actually automatic, and B, they can be as tricky to use as the gizmo or just trying to thread the needle yourself. Now the needle threader is actually this thing, which comes down like that and goes to the back of the needle. Now usually what happens is the needle's either not quite in the right place, and there's like a little hook on this end of the needle threader that has to go through the eye of the needle to work. So when you're using an automatic needle threader, just make sure that you've got that little hook thing through the eye of the needle before you try to use it, because if it's not lined up properly, your needle threader's not going to work. And what we do is you bring the thread, I'm going to try and keep my hands out of the way, but it's going to be a bit tricky. Bring the thread round the back of that little plastic thing there, and then just bring it in front of the needle and try and catch it on that little hook that's sticking through the needle. And then hopefully, if you've got that wrapped around the little spiky bit sticking through your needle, or just going so it's caught it, you should find that that will pull the thread through your needle for you, which it has, but it hasn't come it all the way through, so I'm going to need my snips after all. Just a second. Ooh, right, you just gently pull it through like that. There we go. There, now that's the needle threaded. That was easy, wasn't it? Now the other thing that I really like about Janome is he's got a needle up down button, which is right there. It's like there's a little arrow going upwards and a little arrow going downwards. Now unfortunately Janome is a UK model, so works on UK power, so to plug him in here on a US power system I need my step-up converter, which I haven't got with me at the moment. So for the point of this video I'll be using the hand wheel on Janome to get the bobbin up. Now Janome's bobbin, whoops, works slightly differently to the ones that we've seen before. He's got a plastic bobbin, and the reason for that is because he's a top loading or a drop-in bobbin, and you'll find that most of those do take plastic bobbins because obviously the bobbin system works differently. Now with the top loading bobbin on this particular machine, what you do is you pop it in so that the bobbin is winding anti-clockwise or counterclockwise. Pop it into the little hole like that. It doesn't have a bobbin case, it just slots straight in. There's a little groove at the bottom of the bobbin housing that you pull the thread through, and you just take it off to the left. Janome, the same as the brother, his needle has the flat part to the back of the machine, so he threads front to back. I did forget to mention that when I was threading the needle, but he does, he goes from front to back. Hold the thread as you do with any machine when you're pulling the bobbin up. Now normally, as I say, I'd push the button, the needle would go down, you push the button again and the needle will come up with the bobbin thread, but for today we'll use the hand wheel. So turning it towards me, go down, you'll see the thread go across the front of the bobbin and it'll pull that bobbin thread up, and there it is. It's right there. And it's just a case of finishing it off by pulling it through. I hope you enjoyed my video today. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments if this has helped with threading your machine, and I'd love to hear about your sewing adventures with whatever machine that you've got or whatever you sew with. If you've got any questions, ask me down in the comments. I'll try to answer as many as I can. If all things sewing is one of your passions, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit that little bell so that YouTube will let you know next time I upload another video. And talking about my other videos, why not go and check out some of the other ones that I've got uploaded at the moment. If you take a look at the screen, you should see a couple of links coming up. The top link is one that YouTube thinks that you might like to see next, and the bottom link is one that I think you might like to see next. But whichever video you decide to watch, I hope you come back and meet me here for my next one. Meanwhile, whatever you're sewing with, embrace your creativity and have fun. Thanks ever so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.